Chapter 10 Video Response. First question asks, in your view, which is more effective for evaluating stress? The social readjustment rating scale or the Hassel scale? Explain the advantages and disadvantages of each. I believe that the Hassel scale is more effective for evaluating stress. Some advantages of the Hassel scale are it takes into account the facts that items may or may not represent stressors to individuals, and that the amount of stress produced by an item varies from person to person. It also indicated that these minor hassles that accompany the major life events are better predictors of a person's level of psychological distress than the major events themselves. Some disadvantages to the Hassel scale is just that. It only focuses on the negative of the hassles. It doesn't take into effect the positive or uplifts of life events, which may neutralize the effects of many hassles. Some advantages to the Social Readjustment Rating Scale, or SRRS, is that it's an easily readable scale with unit values pertaining to major life events that almost all of us experience. It also takes into account the positive and the negative major life events, not just focusing on one or the other. For example, getting married. There are some negative aspects of marriage, but it also produces positive ones that the SRRS takes into account. Another positive is that it includes events that some never or rarely go through, such as combat experience, a sexual assault, or a natural disaster. Some disadvantages to the Social Readjustment Rating Scale could be that it doesn't measure the smaller stressors that go along with these major life events. The aftermath or lingering effects of a firefight, such as PTSD, that one deals with, or a phobia that one may develop due to these major life events itself. Question number 2 asks, prepare 2 arguments, one supporting the position that alcoholism is a genetically inherited disease, and the other supporting the position that alcoholism is not a medical disease, but results from learning. My argument for alcoholism being a genetically inherited disease is that one of the findings from neuroscientist Henry Begleiter and his colleagues, who accumulated a large amount of evidence suggesting that the brains of alcoholics respond differently to visual and auditory stimuli than those of non-alcoholics. Also, the relatives of alcoholics, even the children and adults who have never consumed alcohol, display these same types of patterns, these same types of response patterns. This all lends support to the disease model itself. My argument that alcoholism is a learned behavior and not genetically predisposed is simply from experiences around this area. I've lived in 5 different states in the last 10 years, and nowhere have I seen alcoholism more prevalent than right here in La Crosse, Wisconsin. With the atmosphere this town projects with alcohol at the forefront of all of its demands, the idea of alcoholism is a learned behavior. These are influenced right from high school through college, with bars and taverns catering to the college student who is low on money but high on a good time, with the $5 all-you-can-drink nights and 25-cent tap nights, and etc. Right through adulthood with festivities and festivals such as Oktoberfest, which promote open alcoholism in the streets. There were festivals in other places that I've lived in, which included Maryland, Florida, California, and Arizona. But the attitude and the demeanor of those people were nothing like it is here. It's like the people live for this one weekend of Oktoberfest a year simply to get annihilated, which can quickly turn into a weekly event and then quickly turn into a nightly event, which turns into alcoholism. Alcoholism is masked by cool event names and generational sponsors promoting good times and don't miss out notions that they may have. This is my argument for alcoholism is not being a disease, but it comes from learning. And question number 3 for chapter 10 asks, choose several stress-producing incidences from your life and explain what problem-focused and emotion-focused coping strategies you used. From the knowledge you have gained in this chapter, list other coping strategies that might have been more effective for you. So one stress-producing incident was having to leave the Marine Corps for the first time in 2006, which then I quickly rehabbed and got back in 2007 from an injury. But leaving the Marine Corps in 2006 produced many stresses on many different levels. I faced this this head on with a problem focused coping strategy of making sure that everything was in order before leaving the Marine Corps, before I transitioned to civilian life, by interviewing for numerous jobs and finally accepting one that fit in line with the work that I had been doing in the Marine Corps. So it wasn't that hard of a transition. An emotion focused coping strategy that I used was thanking God for the time that He did give me in the Marine Corps, the people that I met, the experiences that I had, the knowledge and the know-how of what I did in that job that's going to transfer over, knowing that I wouldn't always be able to be there in the Marine Corps, and that it was an opportunity to use my skills and knowledge that I had gained to utilize them in the civilian workforce. Another stress-producing incident was having to leave for 3 months for training to 29 Palms, California for Sergeant's course back in 2009, and not being able to see my family for that amount of time. I know 3 months might not seem too long, but not being away or being away from your kids and your family, not being able to see the daily ins and outs of what goes on in their life for 3 months is pretty tough sometimes. So my problem-focused coping strategy for this was to make sure that everything was in order before I left, just like I did with the Marine Corps when I had to leave in 2006. Finances, groceries, child daycare, and finally talking to my family, sitting them down with my wife and 2 kids, and making sure that they understood where Daddy was going to be at for the next 3 months. This reassured not only my family, but myself as well, knowing that my responsibilities at home were going to be taken care of, and they were going to be spread out amongst the family. That way, not all of the burden was being was falling upon my wife at the time. The emotion-focused coping method was telling myself, no matter how hard it might be, or how hard it may be being away from my family for that period of time, it was for the greater good. Because by going through this course, it was setting me up for promotion, and more importantly, having a greater responsibility when I returned to my unit in Arizona. Also knowing that going through this course could help me get promoted, this in turn would help me financially by earning a higher salary for promotion, or with the promotion. And then it asks, list another coping strategy that might have been more effective. I think that social support could have helped out tremendously. It took us a while to find a good Bible-based church to go to while we lived in Arizona. But when we did, it was part of a social support we didn't have before. Being away from your family, all of your family, my wife's family being from Florida and mine being here from Wisconsin, it's hard sometimes not having that support. And I don't believe that's one thing that any military family should go without. So having that social support would have helped out with these problems long before. Those are my responses from Chapter 10. Thank you.